people's resistance in today's India. As those who are present in this hall, we all know, more or less know, about the present ongoing climate and environmental crisis, and it is not anymore something theoretical or something academic. It is being manifested by all of us at more or less every local plane. It is being manifested in the form of climate change, global warming. It is being manifested in the form of sea level rise, disruption in the weather cycle, disruption in the water cycle. It is impacting our agriculture. It is impacting more or less everything. So it is not anymore a mere academic discourse anymore. It is being experienced by all of us. So when we talk about climate change or environmental change, it is very important that we identify and we understand that who are the real victims of environmental or climate crisis. If we see, we all know that we all, as we experience, that these are the majorly the underprivileged, marginalized section of the society who are the victims of the climate crisis all over the world, especially in the developing and the underdeveloped nations. Now, if we look into our country, that is India, where we see that in last few decades there have been several environmental movements. And these movements are very significant, they are very important, because these movements were able to raise the most important and the most pertinent questions which is needed to be raised when we discuss or we address the issues like climate change. That is the question: what thing is playing the most important role behind this crisis. Now, as we can see that the entire world is going through environmental crisis, which is further aggravated by the constant exploitation of natural resources, corporate plunder of natural resources, and which is leading towards disruption in various natural cycles, loss of biodiversity, loss of natural resources, and the poor and the marginalized people are becoming the victims of this crisis. Globally, the issue of climate refugees or environmental refugees have become a major issue. The recent data shows that India is right now having more than 1.5 crores of climate refugees who have been forced to be displaced from their homes due to different climate related hazards. And by 2050 this could reach more than 5 crore. So these are some data, and as per the IPCC data, as we know that currently we are per decade we are facing around 0.2 degrees Celsius of temperature increase, and if we go by this way, by 2040 we will cross the 1.5 degree limit that is given by the IPCC, and that will disrupt many ecological natural cycles, impacting our agriculture, our food security, our monsoon pattern, our weather pattern, and whatnot. And so the major climate victims, or those who are suffering this calamity from the foremost, those marginalized people, those who are living in the coastal regions, those who are living in the marginalized areas. We all know about the Sundarbans, which is experiencing every year. We are seeing there are different storm surges, cyclones, there is inundation of the low-lying areas, and every year the Bay of Bengal is experiencing 3 to 8 on an average 3 to 8 millimeter of sea level rise, and the people who are living in these vulnerable areas are forced to leave their place, are forced to leave their livelihoods, and are becoming the climate victims or the climate refugees. And also, most importantly, we must note that the urban places as well, urban places like Bangalore, Kolkata, Bhubaneswar, Mumbai, these places are also quite vulnerable as we live very close to the coast, and in few decades there are probability that along with the Pacific Ocean islands, there are probability that these cities, coastal cities like the Kolkata, the Bhubaneswar, they might also get inundated. And last year, perhaps we all remember that the Bengaluru city, how it experienced a severe flood in the urban areas, and again who became the victims? Mostly the slum dwellers, the marginalized people who hardly had any resources. So this is basically a cycle. Those who are climate, we all understand that climate crisis is more aggravated by the inequality, and along with this unequal distribution of resources, lack of access to resources, these crises is increased, and it is the lack of these things make them into force them into being in precarious situation, and it is the precarious situation that also lead them to face the crisis in case of adapting to the situations of climate crisis or environmental crisis. So this is kind of a cycle, severe cycle. And if we see that how the states are responding to climate change or this climate crisis, we can find out there are three kind of strategies. Number one is, of course, to taking forward the same neoliberal agenda, the corporate agenda, taking forward the same model of so-called development, which is causing these environmental or climatic disruptions. Number two is kind of denial, which we all know that many of the state leaders, like in our country also, our Prime Minister, state leaders like Bolsonaro, like Donald Trump, these leaders have constantly have denied the seriousness or denied the existence of the issues like climate change. This has been, we all have witnessed this. And number three is, I would say, very important. Number three, there is a constant theorization that by putting the responsibility on the individual level. So by and these what does it do? It basically denies the systematic pattern of the exploitation, and it puts all the responsibility on the individual level, and obscuring the responsibility from the corporations or from the policymakers. So I would say these three points needs to be addressed if we want to address climate change or environmental change from the ground. And if we look into the Indian situation, I would very quickly try to give a few examples from the Indian context. That if we see in last 2 decades, India has always been a home for various kinds of environmental and climate movements. We all know that, and especially in last 2 decades, where this rate of climate exploitation, this rate of environmental crises has increased. There have been many presence of many sporadic as well as organized environmental and climate movements throughout our country, as we can see. If you see in one decade back, there was Niyamgiri. We all know about the movement raised by the local indigenous communities, and we all know about the POSCO, how the local Adivasis, the tribal communities, they came together and how they resisted this kind of corporate aggression. Now you will see that the same state which constantly boost about environmentalism, says that you do this, you do that, you practice this lifestyle, you practice that lifestyle. The same state will come up with state operation and with all kinds of atrocities when you try to protest, or when you try to defend yourself from the corporate land grab or the corporate aggression on the rivers or hills or mountains or your mineral resources. This is the same state will they can even pose UAPA on you, and this happened last year when UAPA was imposed on the climate activists just because they protested against dilution of the environmental laws. This is this which we all can see and we all are witnessing. Along with that, there were many important environmental laws which are being constantly diluted in the last few years in our country. For example, we know about the FRA, Forest Rights Act 2006, which was one of the major instrument for the marginalized people, especially the indigenous communities, the tribal communities, the forest dwellers. The FRA 2006 was kind of a safeguard for the forest dwellers and the Adivasis, the indigenous community, the forest dependent communities who actually live with the nature. That is, and protecting nature is not something imposed on them. That is very very natural for them. So these FRA, which gave a safeguard to these communities, which recognized for the first time the cultural, the traditional, the livelihood, economic rights over the forest, these FRA, and this was not just given to them. This FRA 2006 was possible due to prolonged protest, due to prolonged struggle by the many communities. So this FRA 2006, which empowered the local Gram Sabhas, that before starting any so-called developmental project in the forest land or any sensitive areas, you need to take NOC, no objection, from the Gram Sabhas. So it was the FRA 2006 which empowered the indigenous communities to fight against these powerful corporate lobbies, and that is why the Niyamgiri movement, the POSCO movement, the Kinnor Hydral project could be resisted. And very tactfully, last year in 2022, forest reservation rule amendment was introduced, and which very tactfully took away the power of the Gram Sabha and took away the mandatory rule that the NOC of Gram is mandatory from the NOC before you start any kind of developmental project in the sensitive forest land or the surrounding areas. So basically, this is kind of a conspiracy to pave the ways for the corporates, to make it easy, so that the forest land can be given to the big corporates like the Vedantas, like the Adanis and the Ambanis easily, and in the name of doing business. In the name of ease of doing business, all these policies are very tactfully, very cleverly being changed. The same thing we witnessed in 2020 when the entire world was fighting with COVID pandemic. Our country was also fighting with COVID pandemic. There was thousands, lakhs of migrant workers struggling for survival. At that point of time, we saw that the central government introduced the EIA notification 2020, which very tactfully, which was meant to dilute the norms, the regulations, again in the name of ease of doing business. So after many resistances, for now that is still on hold. So these kind of change, similarly the coastal zone regulation acts has been diluted. So many kinds of all these whatever norms, whatever regulations we used to have in our country to protect the environment or the climate is gradually being diluted for the sake of the corporate lobbies, for their profit mongering, we should say. So and along with that, there are problems related to we have Taposh along with us. He will describe in detail the Joshimot crisis, but we all know the Joshimot, how the Joshimot is the Joshimot situation. We all know, but this was not at all sudden or something sudden. This was happening since last few decades. The Uttarakhand, the state of Uttarakhand was formed to protect or formed as a byproduct of the struggles of the indigenous communities of the Uttar Pradesh. But and to protect their lands, their labors, their livelihoods, their rivers, their hills. But in spite of that, we found that to make it a Urja Pradesh, a storehouse of power, Uttarakhand, to make it a storehouse of power, there was numbers of unplanned dams, and very interestingly, all these dams, the charge was given to the NTPC. Now, the question arises that why a thermal power plant corporation would be given the role to control the hydropower project. This is a very important question. And when finally, after the NTPC-led Tapovan Vishnugad project has caused this severe destruction in Joshimot, where the people are struggling for last 2 decades since 2000 under the banner of Joshimot Bachao Samiti led by Atul Sati and many others. Now they are being forced to displace from Joshimot, where there is in 12 days there is a Joshimot had sunk for more than 5 to 6 centimeters, and the report published by ISRO, very interestingly, is not anymore available on their website. And there is a strict instruction from the government that no informations or no documents will be made public further regarding anything regarding the Yoshimor disaster. The similar kind of serious project which is going on currently in our country is the National River Linking Project. Perhaps we all have heard about that. It started many years back, but now it has started taking the shape. So the first river linking project has started, that aims to connect the Ken and Betwa to tributaries of river Yamuna, which is if it completes, the experts assume that it will inundate quite a good area of the Panna National Tiger Reserve. So, and this kind of national river linking project will definitely is going to have adverse effects on the monsoon cycle, on the biodiversity, on the river drainage pattern and whatnot. But still, these kind of projects are being made, just like the Char Dham project, which has been introduced in Uttarakhand for making pilgrimage, more commercial. So that is another reason for the Yoshimor disaster, or the disaster in the entire Uttaranchal or Himachal Pradesh area. And all these kind of irregulations, all these kind of irregularities, dilution of acts, dilution of environmental laws are being encouraged by the authorities, by the respective governments. And not only that, if you compare the policies with the international negotiations, we all know in last year in 2022, in COP26 in Glasgow, COP26. Firstly, though, in 2011, India, very shamefully succumbed to the pressure of United States and the other developed nations. They withdrew from the common but differentiated responsibility in terms of carbon emission. And last year, when in Glasgow, whereas India along with other countries has agreed to minimize or phase out use of coal, and agreed to become for net zero emission by the year of 2070. In reality, we are seeing that new coal mines, that to open coal mines, that are being introduced. We all know in West Bengal, in Deutsche Pachami, there is a all full-fledged plan to open an open mining of coal that is supposed to be the second largest in the world and the largest in the Asia. So that is going to evict thousands of indigenous communities, minorities from their lives and livelihoods. So there is naturally there has been a strong resistance from the local people, and that is all kind of operation to control that resistance, to fight them back is being carried out by the state government as well. So in Deutsche Pachami, similar like Deutsche Pachami, there is a unprecedented incident took place last year, where the Wildlife Protection Board itself, they gave permission for coal mining in a national reserve forest in Assam, Behing Patkai, that is the elephant reserve forest. That is, and coal mining was permitted by the Wildlife Board of India itself. And again, that has been resisted by the local people. The movement is still going on. Similarly, in Madhya Pradesh, Baksawa diamond mine, in many other places in India, you can see the same kind of protest resistance you can see, and specifically from those people who are the actual victims, who are actually going to face the consequences. So it is very important to understand here that these movements, these resistances, which are taking forward the most pertinent question in the politics of climate crisis or the environmental crisis, that we need to understand these exploitative model, or identify these exploitative model. And we need to understand, as many Marxist ecologists like Paul Brookett, like now the Koi Saito, they have analyzed the economic, environmental or climate crisis as the contradictions in the capitalism, and as the increasing metabolic rift between the man and the nature. The crisis is going to deepen further. And without addressing this, without addressing the inequalities present in all social, cultural, political format in the society, addressing climate change or addressing environmental change would not be possible. So I think with this I would quickly wrap up, as I will have to leave now. And if there is any question, I can address it further.
If there are any questions.